Hello, I'm Robin, and today we're looking at the Bastl Pizza. Sounds a bit like this. What is it doing? Oh, God only knows. I've no clue. If you want an in-depth technical look at the Bastl Pizza, then go and check out DivKid's video, because he absolutely takes you through the nuts and bolts. This video is going to be a little bit more kind of intuitive and fumbly than that. We're going to have a bit of a play. You're going to push some things around and kind of see what it does. And all of that while the rain is coming down, which just adds, I think, to the atmosphere. Now, the pizza is really interesting. It emerged, I think, at Superbooth, and as soon as I saw it, I snapped one up. I bought it. This is mine. They haven't sent it to me. This is not a sponsored review or anything. This is my own purchase anxiety weighing in on my bias about digital modules, because I have a love-hate relationship with digital modules. Well, no, mostly it's a hate relationship, because there's something about analog, even if it's fake analog, that I connect with. I automatically just mesh with and enjoy shaping and crafting. As soon as I start messing around with FM, with wavefolding, things just seem to fall apart. It gets harsh, it gets clangy, it gets all sort of metallic, but never for me in a particularly good way. What I saw in Pizza almost immediately was that this potentially could be the digital module that I actually fall in love with. And am I there? I don't know, maybe we'll talk about it at the end. Because what I believe this is, it's an FM oscillator. It's a complex oscillator for people who don't like complex oscillators, for people who don't really get on with FM, or if you've stuffed some FM about the place and gone, yeah, well, I mean, that's like a sci-fi special effect, but it's not really something that I could use in a track. This is the module for you, I think. It has an uncanny ability to find sweet spots all over the place. It has this way that you fiddle with it and you fiddle with it and you just can't seem to go wrong. It's like, oh no, it's still good. Oh, it's still good. Oh no, it's still good, just differently good. And every time you come back to it, it produces something different and unexpected. There's nothing intentional about it. I don't move a slider thinking, I know exactly what this is going to do. I move a slider going, I wonder what this is going to do. It's a module of discovery, while all the time having the harshness of those clanging cycles of oscillations, of those those ways that FM brings audio rate in and stuff about and breaks it down and pushes it out fizzing from the edges. All of that is within here. But as you move around, you keep finding these moments of loveliness, these moments of tone and clarity, and it's continuously musical all the way through. That in a nutshell is what I've found in here. And what I'm going to do in this video is just show you a bit of that. We're going to come in a bit closer, we'll look at some scopes, we'll make tunes with it, we'll move sliders around just to see whether we can get some of the breadth of possibility of this module while the rain ratchets down upon my roof. Before we look at the pizza, I just wanted to share sort of my experience of FM. Now, FM is extremely nuanced and exciting and interesting and deep and all those sorts of things, but ultimately when you're trying to do it in modular, you take an oscillator and you plug another oscillator into it. That's kind of what's going on. You need audio rate modulation, an oscillation that's moving really fast, plugged into the FM input, and that then produces these extraordinary FM tones. Let me kind of show you what I mean. So I've just got something going into the honor here, just a tune that's going around, and I'm going to take the output of the performance VCO, plug it into the FM input. Somewhere in there's something awesome. Somewhere there's tuneful bell tones and metallic tones and clangs and bits and pieces, and if you know what you're doing and you work really hard at it, you can achieve something. Now, as you can see, my FM abilities, my FM skills are meager, are tiny, are this big. And what I think Pizza offers is to expand the possibilities of FM within my own rig without me really having to know anything about how you make that happen. And that is genius. The Bastl Pizza then. Here it is. It's an interesting looking module. The way that you've got knobs and sliders. The fact that you've got this shape slider at this strange sort of jaunty angle is really quite interesting. And what I find as I'm playing with it is that your fingers are interested. It's not just a bunch of knobs or a bunch of sliders. You find yourself playing in different places because it feels nice. That adds a whole other dimension. Just the fact that the controls are different. It's a really interesting module. It's gorgeous to look at as well. It's beautiful with the green. I've put a little bit of these modules to the side so you can see, really appreciate the green glowing through from behind the panel. It's really nice. Now essentially Pizza is 3 oscillators. There's a main oscillator that makes all the main noise. Then there's an octave oscillator which sits around an octave higher or lower than the main. And there's a ratio oscillator that you can set to various ratios of the main oscillator. Why is that important? Well, ratios are to do with FM. Where FM works properly is where you have the oscillators tuned to intervals, whether that's octaves or ratios. So when I'm farting around on my other rack with just a couple of oscillators jammed into each other, it very quickly gets out of any kind of sense of where anything is, which is why FM doesn't work very well in that context. If I'd thought about it more, if I knew what I was doing, if I tuned my oscillators and did proper things with proper ratios and dialed it in, I would get a much better, more successful FM experience. But that's difficult in the context of modular. because you don't always have those facilities available to you. Once you've plugged one into the other, you've no longer can tune the one that's modulating. So what Pizza does is takes care of that kind of nuance, that kind of level of detail, and that's sorted out within Pizza. So if you can hear me above the storm that swirls around my shed, we'll listen to the Pizza. So at a basic level, you have a sine wave coming out. I've got nothing going on other than the internal oscillator. What you have is the other two oscillators sit either side. They're ready to modulate at any point. Octave on this side, ratio on this side. This slider in between, the FM index, mixes between these two. So in the middle there's nothing going on. As I go this way, it goes more towards the octave. As I go this way, it goes more towards the ratio. And you can already see that that's fascinating. What does it mean? Oh, well, who knows, but it's just making those harmonics. So that in itself is pretty interesting. You've got a modulation knob here, which when you put modulation in, that then controls how far it's going, either that way or that way, positive or negative, and that's very important for getting interesting things happen. The interplay between these two things is quite remarkable. And then for both oscillator and ratio, you have these buttons which change its relationship. So if I go all the way to octave, I can then change the octave that's modulating at. If I go away across the ratio, I can add in different ratios. Do I know what that means? Yeah, kind of. I mean, these are user definable. You can look through the manual and work out how the heck you do that, but you can set these at different ratios. So intervals, essentially, we're talking about fifths, fourths, sevenths, that kind of thing. And it's that creates the relationship between those two waveforms, the internal oscillator and the ratio oscillator, that creates the sound that you want. Nice bit of crossfading. Then back in the middle, you just pull out those sine waves again. But that's only half the story. The other half happens down here with this jaunty shape control. Now this has three functions. The first one is a wave shaper, but this acts purely on the octave and the ratio oscillators. It doesn't act on the main oscillator. So you can see that nothing is actually going on. But if I then push it up one way or the other, then the wave shape does its work, because it's working on the modulator. There's an interesting amount of fizz, you know. I thought it would be like crystal clear all the time, but it's not. It has a grit. It has a fizz to it around the edges, as if the waveforms are, you know, are at the edge of something. And that's either a flaw or a bonus, depending on your point of view. If I go the other side, just lovely. So you got these two things going on. You can be swapping between octave and ratio and then wave shaping those modulators. It just makes you want to play. Back to me sine wave again. The fold option here does operate directly on the main oscillator. Which then of course affects how everything else is affecting it. And then lastly you've got ring modulation, which is just another interesting and lovely set of tones. So the interesting thing is that as you play, you find these really sweet little sine wave tones that then just get folded and then destroyed. And that can be painful sometimes, but it can also be completely gorgeous. If I throw in a bit of modulation from my Fader bank over here, you can go into the FM index. Also go into the shape. See, now you're thinking, but isn't that all that kind of FM-y, kind of rubbishy, crappy digital clanginess that I didn't like before in my rack? Well, yes, because the Pizza is absolutely capable of finding itself in distressful situations, but it's also easy to get out of. So you can push it into some sort of weird crappiness and then just nudge it back. Throw it out to the reaches of zany, FM-y, clangy, weird grittiness. And then just pull it back. But at the moment it's just droning. I mean, it of course gets more interesting as you give it something to play with. So what else do we have? We have the output for the Octave Oscillator all by itself. Which is nice. You can also replace this. If you wanted to put a different oscillator in, you can plug that in here and that will override the Octave Oscillator. You don't have an output for the ratio oscillator, but you do have a pulse output, which comes directly from the main oscillator. And then the FM index over here becomes pulse width modulation. And then of course you could use all three together if that's your thing. I think the additional outputs coming out from the Pizza, I feel that my view of them changes. At times they seem to overwhelm, and like that pulse wave just seems to be too much, particularly when you're moving the index, because it's doing all that pulse wave modulation, which can be good, but also it's a bit fizzy, it's a bit gritty, and I'm not always sure that I can hear what's going on behind, so it can sometimes overwhelm. Oh, for crying out loud. However, at other times it adds this beefiness. this just solidity to the sound. So, you know, I think the point is, perhaps, that there's a vast array of possibilities with the pizza. So you can totally just enjoy the twangy end of it, you can enjoy the beefiness, you can enjoy the grit, or the purity. You can just go straight into wavefolding and ring modulation. You can play in that realm, or you can make it nasty and noisy and forever tumbling out of itself in dissonance and clanginess. Let's add some reverb and some delay back in to see how beautiful we can make it. Wow. Wow. That is flipping ace. That is just amazing. It's all this. I mean, I've added a stereo delay, I've added a bit of reverb, but otherwise it's all coming out of this. You dial in that pulse wave, dial in the octave, just sublime. It's forever changing. Add a little bit of modulation, it starts moving this about. And it finds an edge, it finds a grit. It's just brilliant. And you can push it back to nasty. And it will just lap it up. So that's the Bastl Pizza. What the heck is all that about? I don't know. It's a little bit of fabulousness wrapped up in a digital oscillator that's complex and yet just free flowing in the way that it sends out its little oscillations, its signals, its waveforms. It plays, and it plays right back. It's not something which is static. It doesn't sit there just waiting for you to do something. It is self-modulating. It is self-ruining. It is decaying and building itself back up again. It's finding harmonics, it's finding other tones, and then bringing in a clang and a crash, and then noisulating that, if there is such a thing. It's a remarkable little module. I mean, the way that it can just run the thing, and maybe that's it. Maybe if I'm trying to dig a flaw out of it, something that's perhaps not pleasing to everyone, and that is that it dominates. It wants to be there. I mean, I've had this in my rack for quite a while, and I've never really focused on it. I've just sort of plugged it in and tried it out a few times, and it brings this mesh. It brings this cloud of stuff that if you've got a lot of other things going on, you're never quite sure if you can hear it, or is it's just adding to the cacophony. It's just adding to the huge array of sound you've already got going on, and so perhaps it gets lost in that, or perhaps it overwhelms other bits of your rack, and so you need to use it perhaps sparingly. You need to bring it in for a solo. You need to either that or write an entire track that's purely based upon that, just bringing a little bit of percussion. Maybe a bass line. Is this being the bass line? I don't know. I mean, I haven't really run it through filters yet. I mean, maybe that's another thing that you can do. I mean, I guess commonly digital modules tend to be doing their own thing as opposed to being then shaped in an analog style. But you can do what the heck you like, because this is modular. So maybe a bit of that as well would cut down on some of the sharper edges. Because it does get sharp. It does get harsh. It does pull you through a digital hedge of thorniness from time to time, while always then coming back and finding another sweet spot. I've never had this much fun with FM before, never had this much fun with a digital module, and I've been through a few that I just can't seem to get on with, that I can't get musical with. Whereas this was no end of music, no end to it. You know, it would be playing this tune, it would be finding and grabbing hold and clawing into a melody, finding that, and then breaking apart, and then coming back, and then breaking apart. I mean, a lot of that is in the modulation. I'm running some slow modulation in from the Frader bank over here, which is just simple manually recorded modulation. You could put all sorts of things in there. Envelopes would work really well just to do the wavefold in and out. Things like that. I mean, it has no end to the possibilities. You can just keep plugging things into it and see what happens. But wow, yeah. That's amazing. I'm thinking now, where can I use it? Would it sit right? I mean, if I'm just running a techno set, right? Like, so you got bass going on, you've got your percussion going on, and you want to bring in some other things. Would it fit well with that? I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, the sweeter bits, those sine waves and stuff, absolutely. I love the way they crawl in. I mean, this knob here, the control knob, is at the moment it's set to octavize, so it just sends it up and sends it down. You can actually map that to different parameters within the module, so you can control the shape of the wavefolding and the shape of the ring modulation at the same time. So there's other possibilities you can do with that might make for interesting variations or interesting changes. So I'd say that while it is a beautiful module to sit down and spend an hour with, just fiddling and finding tones, it will be perhaps a bit more of a challenge to fit that within a set, within a rack, within an arrangement. But, you know, heck, I'm up for that kind of challenge. That sounds interesting to me. So there you go. There's my take on the Bastl Instruments Pizza, without knowing anything about what that ratio stuff is about, what the octave stuff is about, any of that FM indexing. I've no idea. You're just moving it about and modulating it, seeing what happens. And the pizza absolutely enables you to do that without feeling foolish, without feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing. It rewards you as you play. And I can't ask for anything more than that. Hope that was helpful. In the meantime, go make some tunes.